Well, there are just 2 days left until the New Hampshire primary, the first in the nation. And last night, candidates from both parties faced off in separate debates. Democratic candidate John Edwards appeared to be teaming up with Barack Obama to attack Hillary Clinton. Both men tried to paint themselves as the forces of change. Well, Clinton fired back, saying she's the only candidate whose record proves that she can make change happen.
Making change is not about what you believe. It's not about a speech you make. It is about working hard. There are 7,000 kids in New Hampshire who have health care because I helped to create the Children's Health Insurance Program.
Folks out there feel the American dream is slipping away. They are working harder for less. They are paying more for health care, for college, for gas at the pump, and they are having a tougher time saving and retiring. And what they don't feel is that the government is listening to them and responding to them. That's the kind of change that I think we need.
I hope we have time to get to some of that, but before we get to it, talking about domestic policy, I want to get to the concept of change. Because 60% of the people going into the Democratic caucuses in Iowa said they were going to go there for change, and that seemed to redound to your benefit, Senator Obama. And arriving here in New Hampshire, Senator Clinton, you called into question really what that means. And you said, and I'm quoting you now, on a lot of issues, it's hard to know where he, referring to Senator Obama, stands. And people need to ask that. Everybody needs to be vetted. So let me have a little dialogue between the two of you. What does he need to be vetted on, and what questions are there about Senator Obama that are unanswered?
Well, let me say first that I think we're all advocating for change. We all want to change the status quo, which is George W. Bush and the Republican domination of Washington for so many years. And we all are putting forth ideas about how best to deliver that change. But I don't think you make change by, calling for it or by demanding it. I think it is a result of very hard work, bringing people together, stating clearly what your goals are, what your principles are, and then achieving them. And I do think that part of what this primary process is all about, and New Hampshire voters are, famously independent in making their judgments, is to look at our records, to evaluate where we stand and what we stand for. And I think that there is a lot of, room to ask all of us questions. Senator Obama has been, as the Associated Press described it, he could have a pretty good debate with himself. Because 4 years ago, he was for single-payer health care. Then he moved toward a rejection of that, a more incremental approach. Then he was for universal health care. Then he proposed a health care plan that doesn't cover everybody. I think that's relevant. I mean, I think that what we're looking for as a president, we can count on. That you know where that president is yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And I think that there are questions that, should be asked and answered from each of us. And I certainly have no problem with whatever scrutiny comes my way.
Senator Obama?
Well, I think the Associated Press was quoting some of your folks, Hillary. So let's talk specifically about health care since you mentioned that. I have been entirely consistent in my position on health care. What I said, and I have said on the campaign trail this time, is if I were designing a system from scratch, I would set up a single-payer system because we could gain enormous efficiencies from it. Our medical care costs twice as much per capita as any other advanced nation. But what I've also said is that given that half of the people are getting already employer-based health care, that it would be impractical for us to do so, which is why I put forward a plan that says can get health care that is the same as the health care that I have as a member of Congress, similar to the plans that you and John have offered. We do have a philosophical difference. John and yourself believe that if we do not mandate care, if we don't force the government to get, if the government does not force taxpayers to buy health care, that we will penalize them in some fashion. I disagree with that because as I go around town hall meetings, I don't meet people who are trying to avoid getting health care. The problem is they can't afford it. The costs are too high. And so, as a consequence, we focus on reducing costs. Now, this is a legitimate argument for us to have, but it's not true that I leave them out. Your premise is they won't buy it even if it's affordable. I disagree with that. Now, let me just make one last point, because you say that somehow I have not been specific. Social Security is a great example, something that you just raised, Charlie. And Here's an area where John and myself were actually quite specific and said, if we are going to deal with this problem realistically, what we need to do is to raise the cap on the payroll tax so that wealthy individuals are paying a little bit more into the system. Right now, somebody like Warren Buffett pays a fraction of 1% of his income in payroll tax, whereas the majority of the audience here pays payroll tax on 100% of their income. And I've said that was not fair. You criticized me for that, which is fine. We have a disagreement on that, but that's hardly because I wasn't specific on it. I was very specific on it.
Well, but I want to go back to health care and make another point. You have a mandate in your health care plan. You mandate parents to have health care for children.
That's exactly right.
And obviously you did that because you want all children covered.
Because they don't have a choice.
Well, they don't have a choice, and you're going to make sure that parents get health care for children. So, you know, you stopped short of going the distance to make sure that we had a system that could actually deliver health care for everyone. But it's not only about health care. You know, I think that 2 weeks ago you criticized Senator Edwards in saying that he was unelectable because he had changed positions over the course of 4 years, that 4 years ago he wasn't for universal health care, now he is. Well, you've changed positions within 3 years on, you know, a range of issues that you put forth when you ran for the Senate, and now you have changed. You know, you said you would vote against the Patriot Act. You came to the Senate, you voted for it. You said that you would vote against funding for the Iraq War. You came to the Senate and you voted for $300 billion of it. So I just think it's fair for people to understand that many of the charges that have been leveled, not just at me, but also at Senator Edwards, are not totally, you know, unrelated to the very record that you have. And you've said records matter, and I think that we should get into examining everybody's record.
I want John to be able to get in on this, but since this was directed at me, make sure that I address this. First of all, I never said John was unelectable. Somebody asked me specifically what did I think was the difference between myself and John, and I pointed out some areas where I thought we had some differences.
And you said that he had changed positions, did you not?
And I did, because I thought that I'd been more consistent on those positions. I have no problem, Hillary, with you pointing out areas where you think we have differences. But on health care, for example, the reason that I mandate for children is because children do not have a choice. Adults do. And it's my belief that they will choose to have health care if it is affordable. Now, that's a perfectly legitimate policy difference for us to have. That is different from saying that I will refuse to cover or leave out a bunch of individuals. And the last point I just want to make on this, Charlie, is you know, these are all good public servants, and everybody has great qualifications and has done good things. But what I think is important we don't do is to try to distort each other's records as you know, Election Day approaches here in New Hampshire. Because what I think the people of America are looking for are folks who are going to be straight about the issues and are going to be interested in solving problems and bringing people together. That's the reason I think we did so well in Iowa.
You've been very patient.
You have,
Thank
and I appreciate it.
you. No, you're welcome.